new lawsuit filed this week states that Act 372, an act to amend the law concerning libraries and obscene materials made available to minors, is against the Constitution. Joining us now on 4029 News on the Record is David Johnson, the Executive Director of the Fayetteville Public Library. Now, the Fayetteville Library is one of several plaintiffs involved in this lawsuit. Sir, thank you so much for joining us today on 4029 News on the Record. Could you quickly explain the lawsuit and your role in it?
Yeah, so the lawsuit essentially is saying that Articles 1 and Article 5 in the Act 372 that was signed by the governor just recently and is scheduled to go into effect on August 1, as a matter of fact. We are challenging two sections of that law. The first is just what we consider to be the availability, which addresses this kind of vague description or vague definition of obscene and books that should not be made available because they are, quote unquote, deemed obscene. And the other section we're challenging is Section 5, which really speaks to the process by which books are actually challenged, and that we're suggesting that the process itself by that a patron would come forward with a book to challenge is really a flawed process.
Okay, and now, David, I know that you're just one of several plaintiffs. How did you all come together? Talk to us about the process.
Yeah, see, when the bill was introduced in January, there were a lot of eyes on it. Certainly, we saw that the public libraries in the state were addressed in this bill. We looked at school libraries as well. And then we also noticed that individual bookstores could also be impacted by this bill if it were to become law. And Nate Coulter, the executive director of the Central Arkansas Library System, and that library system itself, they really followed it closely, kept us all informed, a lot of eyes on it. But it was really Nate has taken a bit of the leadership role in stepping forward and saying, that this law is unconstitutional. It should not stand. And they have taken a leadership role in pulling together all of the plaintiffs.
David, do you know the timeline of this lawsuit at all? Since we are talking about an August 1 implementation of it, do you have any idea about the timeline?
Yeah, so we officially submitted our complaint on Friday last week. We are hoping that a judge will pick it up, and we're also in the process of filing a hope to enjoin or kind of stop the law from actually taking place before this lawsuit is settled. So we don't have a definite timeline on that. I think in the next week or so we will file the attempts to try to do a preliminary injunction, which would slow this lawsuit down, or at least keep it from becoming an active law August 1 until the suit is settled.
Okay. What is Crawford County doing specifically that the plaintiffs decided to include them in the lawsuit and not just the state of Arkansas?
Yeah, so what I've been following with Crawford County, and I'm not as well versed in all of the details in regards to what is happening down there, but I do know that there have been some local citizens who have filed a lawsuit, a federal suit in the Western District in the court in Fort Smith, that they say that the quorum court, the county judge, the library board, and the library director, they are suing them because they have already begun the process of taking items that are deemed obscene and putting them in a prohibited area where 18-year-olds are not allowed to look at those items. So from my understanding, is Crawford County has begun to proactively begin moving those items to that sequestered area prior to the law taking effect in August 1st, and that there's some local citizens who have taken exception to that.
Now, what is your personal or your library's biggest concern about this law that's set to go into effect in August?
Yeah, I think there are really two areas that we're concerned with. One is just what is the definition of obscene, and how do we begin culling through the almost 400,000 items that we have in our collection to determine, does it meet this very vague definition of obscene? And part of what's complicated about that definition is that what may be deemed obscene for a 5-year-old may not be deemed obscene for a 17-year-old. And so the definition there is broad and wide sweeping and really, really vague. So that is part of our question. The second part is the process itself, is that that a patron can come forward and challenge an item, but there's no opportunities in the process for somebody to come forward and speak forward or for the item, wanting to keep it in the collection or to keep it classified the way it is. I think it's important to note that almost all libraries have had a reclassification process and policy in place for a long time. Anybody in the community could always have come forward and said, I don't believe this item belongs in the preschool collection. Can we move it up into the grade school? Or maybe if it's in teen, maybe it belongs in adults. That process has always been there. What we have introduced with this, or what is attempting to be introduced with this law, is that we would now turn it over to the final step, being a government agency. In our case, it would be the city council, who would be the final say in that process. And if the patron doesn't like that process, they can then go to the prosecuting attorney and attempt to have the librarian who checked out the item accused and convicted of a misdemeanor with up to a year in prison. So those are really the bigger pieces that we're challenging and are interested in and concerned with. Then there's the idea of, like, do we have to create a whole special space in the library where only 18-year-olds can have and above can have access to those materials? It's just very fraught with a lot of things that the libraries are incapable of doing. Many of the pieces are vaguely worded. And I think ultimately, it's a real challenge to our First Amendment rights to read what we want to read. If they're going to have a governmental agency, whether it's a quorum court or a city council or a mayor, determine what we can and cannot read, what's next? Are they going to tell us how we can dress? Are we going to be able to say, this is what you can and cannot eat? So erosion of that First Amendment and 14th Amendment rights are dangerous grounds to be poking around on and suggesting that we change.
All right, David Johnson with the Fayetteville Public Library talking about the lawsuit. Thanks so much for joining us today, David. And coming up next on 4029 News on the Record, we sit down with some of the parents involved in the federal lawsuit. We briefly heard the Fayetteville Public Library director mention the federal lawsuit. Now, Samantha Rowlett is with us, and one of the 3 parents suing the Crawford County Library in federal court. Samantha, thank you so much for joining us today. Tell us how you became involved in this lawsuit.
I became involved because we are at the library at least once a week, sometimes more, and we love our library. So when all of the censorship started happening, when books started getting labeled and moved onto the adult social shelf, I had concerns, and I got involved with other people who also had concerns, and here we are today.
Tell us a little bit about your lawsuit.
So our lawsuit is focusing on the library, who was directed by the quorum court to compromise when concerns were brought about obscene materials being in our library. I have checked out probably almost every book on the shelf, and I have not personally seen any obscene children's material. We have gone through these books with our kids. They are not anything that my own kids aren't reading. So moving those books is an infringement upon our rights and my children, because when my children go into the library, they should be able to find books that represent them, and they are not. The books that involve things like divorce or co-parenting, LGBTQ, anything that one person or a couple of people have deemed inappropriate for children have been moved over to that shelf. So it's really sad that if my kids want to go into the library, the children's area where they are safe and free to, browse age appropriate materials, a lot of that has now been moved into the adult section. So now they have to go to the adult section, usually with me, to find picture books on world religions, picture books that involve different households, co-parenting, or being raised by grandparents, or having military parents. Those books are labeled on a separate shelf.
Now, have you talked to Crawford County, either the library or the quorum court, and expressed your concerns? And what did they?
Yes.
What did they say?
The library is at the mercy of the quorum court, right? And the librarians and the staff at the library are having to answer to the board. So the compromise that came about is blown up in everybody's faces, I think. We've gone to every board meeting and we've said, hey, this is not okay. You can't pick and choose what's appropriate for one group of people or what you feel is appropriate. That should be up to the parents. If a parent doesn't want their child to check out a specific book from the library, even if they find it in the children's section or the adult section, then they have the right to say no. But we don't have the right to take from one group or many groups now, because it's not just one type of book now, and take it away from everybody. That's the parents' right. So when we started speaking up and saying, this is not okay, maybe, the book should just go back, let parents say, that's not for our family, let's leave that book here, let's not bring it home. But instead, here we are. We have had very busy board meetings where we've expressed concerns. I've personally expressed concerns, and I've also challenged books to be moved back into the children's section, which I don't think has ever been done. Usually a materials reconsideration form is filled out to move things from one children's section to be reconsidered if it's graphic or adult material. But we're doing the opposite. And so we've moved 2 books back now to the children's section that were just basic picture books. One was about a llama who likes to dance, and the other was about what families look like, whether that be, a man and a woman, or a single parent, or a gay couple. Those are just children's books, and they were appropriate for children. There was nothing obscene or graphic in them.
All right, Samantha, thank you so much, and please keep us up to date with this challenge that you're presenting in the federal court. Thanks so much for joining us today on 4029 News on the Record.